I think most everybody knows that God is on a mission. Like he's up to something, right? He isn't just like hanging out, waiting for people to screw up, to tell them they've messed up. Just a small read of the Bible gives you the impression that he's up to something. And that what it means to know God is then to join him in that mission. But here's the really simple question. How do you do that? Where do you do that? What is he doing that you can join him? I mean, have you thought about that? How do you feel like right now you're joining in God's mission to transform and change the world? Now, often people think you'd have to go somewhere like Africa to do that, or Haiti, because there's a whole lot of need there. I'd have to go, serve kids in Africa, which, by the way, we need a lot of people to do that, don't we? We need to go places where there's need. But I think it's really clear in the scriptures that there's a starting point for how we join God in his mission. It starts actually with something called the Great Commandment. Do you know what the Great Commandment is? Good. Like just right now, you can just say it to yourself. What is the Great Commandment? Another hint, Jesus says, all the law and the prophets are summed up in this. Fill in the blank. Yeah, it's repeated over and over in the New Testament. It's repeated through the Old Testament. It's repeated in almost every world religion. I'll give it to you. Here it is. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets are summed up in this. When you look in the Bible, the law and the prophets is a big part of the Bible. It's summed up in that simple set. Love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. One of the places this appears is in Luke chapter 10. A teacher of the law comes up and says, Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus says, well, you know the law. You're a lawyer, so you know the law of God. What's it say? He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, you answer correctly. Do that, and you will live. Now, the lawyer freezes a little bit because he thinks, I don't do that. I don't know anybody that does that. I don't know anybody that loves God with everything they have and loves their neighbor as themselves. So he freezes, and he does what lawyers do. Lawyers look for loopholes. I don't think it's just lawyers. I think we all look for loopholes. And the lawyer responds with, and who is my neighbor? See, lawyers mess with words, right? That's what they do. They find gaps in phrases. It depends on what the definition of the word is, right? Things like that. He says, and who is my neighbor? And the key thing that Luke records is this, is he asked that question because he was wanting to justify himself. Well, Jesus tells a story then, the parable of the Good Samaritan. And most everyone knows this story, even if you've not read the Bible. It's a story about a man who gets beat up on the side of the road, a priest, a Levite, the people that should help him don't help him, and a third person comes by, a Samaritan. And the Samaritan goes over to the side of the road, picks the man up, tends to his wounds, takes him to the equivalent of a local hospital and pays his bill and says, take care of him, whatever the cost, credit to my account. It's difficult to describe how radical this story would have been in the hearers of the first century. To say a Samaritan saved the man would be maybe equivalent today of saying an ISIS operative saved the man. The American soldiers passed him by. The Red Cross passed him by. And an ISIS operative picks him up, takes care of him, and pays. We would go, what? And so Jesus finishes the story, looks at the lawyer and says, so you tell me, who was the neighbor to the man? And the lawyer is so offended, he's so confused. He says, I guess the one who took care of him. And Jesus says, then go and do likewise. Jesus takes the definition of a neighbor and stretches it to mean an enemy. If you come across an enemy in need, you should take care of them. That's what Jesus says. But I'd like to suggest to you that that level of neighboring is graduate level neighboring. I'd like you to consider kindergarten neighboring. Like, let's start in the simplest context of a neighbor, which is the people that live around you. We have something we've used in our church over years that in our church has sometimes been known as the chart of shame. It's effectively a tic-tac-toe board. And in the middle of the board, just write your address. And in every single box that surrounds that, I'll just give you a minute to do it, write the names of all the people that surround you. They may be in the middle of each box, just write some things about them. Is a lawyer, is from Idaho, whatever. Don't write, has yellow flowers, drives a red car. That's cheating. Those are things that you can just observe. Write down things you know about them through talking to them. And maybe in the bottom of each box, you can write, what are their hopes, what are their dreams, what are their fears, what are their regrets? What's life for them? What makes their heart go? Maybe even what's their spiritual condition? What do they believe about God? If you see what we did there, it's just taking the great commandment literally, to know the names and to connect to those people. Now, I know what you're doing. Some of you are doing it right now. Do not commit the sin of the lawyer. Do not seek to justify yourself. Some of you are going, well, that's not what my street looks like. There's a green belt behind my house. Okay, listen, just write the 8 closest names, okay? Do the 8 closest. Don't be a legalist. Don't look at the tic-tac-toe board. The 8 closest. Now, as we've done this with all kinds of people in all kinds of cities all over the world, most of the time it's about 5% of the room that can fill in all 8 names. 5%. Again, let's review. Jesus says, all along the prophets are summed up in this: love God and love your neighbor. Jesus takes the idea of a neighbor, includes an enemy. I say that's graduate level. Let's do kindergarten. Then I say, let's get out the crayons. Let's just know people's names, right? Let's just try that. I've often heard that leadership is raising the bar, push people beyond their limits. Here's what we're doing right now. We're lowering the bar so low you can't get under it. We're just asking, do you know the names of the people that surround you as a first step of fulfilling the great commandment? I'm not a theologian, but I'm pretty sure knowing someone's name might be a step in truly loving them. And it changes when it goes from, hey, what's up, bro, dude, man? How about the Broncos? To, hey, Dave, I remember last time we talked, your mom was going in for cancer treatment. How's it going? Hey, Betty, remember your daughter, you said, that she's really struggling in school. Is that getting better? Knowing, retaining names begins to catch your heart to pray for and care for people. And of course, it can put you on a treadmill where you begin to engage the people around you. Maybe even you host them for a meal. One of the ways we really care for people is we share meals with them. And you engage them around a meal. This is one of the things Jesus did. He was at parties, or he threw parties through most of the New Testament. If you take parties out of the New Testament, you strip the New Testament. It doesn't exist. Jesus is either going to a party, at a party, or leaving a party, or telling a story about a party through the whole New Testament, because there's something about being with people around food. And I have a prophetic guess about your neighbors. They probably eat food. And they probably eat food around the times that you eat food. This is a simple way to be with people. As we're with people and we begin to pray and serve them, God catches our heart for them. And we hopefully can find ways to talk about the life that we have with Jesus naturally, because we're just sharing deep life with people. So we share what we love with people we love. And God somehow interacts in the middle of that. I think it's possible that Jesus is a genius. I know it's hard to believe, but I think he's a genius. He may have given us a plan that could transform the whole world if we would just take it seriously. Imagine if every believer knew and loved and served and prayed for the 8 homes that surround them. Just that. Our cities would change almost overnight. And of course, this has got to continue. It's not just where we live, but it's where we work. You spend a lot of time with people where you work. And it's where we play, where we enjoy recreation, the games we play, the sports we play. We take the life of Jesus where we go. Start with where we live. When we think about engaged the places where we work and the places that we play, because God is always moving and we're just trying to join him in what he's doing. I wonder what a first step is for you. Maybe you know all the names of your neighbors. Maybe it's having some people over. Maybe you don't, so you can get to know a few folks. Maybe just begin to pray for the places that you work. And God, who here are you want me to serve and love and pray for? Maybe it's including people in the ways you enjoy your life. Have fun. Take people camping. Take people fishing. Invite people out to play golf with you or do an art project or maybe watch a Broncos game or throw a barbecue for Memorial Day or for 4th of July. Invite neighbors, invite coworkers, invite friends, because it's as we live life with people that hopefully we engage them with the life and the love of Jesus because we care about them. And in this, we fulfill the great commandment to love God and to love people. It means we find ourselves sharing the life that we have in Jesus.